We are in celebration of the Alberta Century Farm and Ranch Award, July 2009, to the Jones family for occupying the same homestead and land for over 100 years. This is the Jones story. For those of us who have gathered here to celebrate this day, it would be a sacrilege not to seize the opportunity to pay homage to all of the pioneers who suffered through so many hardships to build this country to what it is today. We are but a mere square on this patchwork quilt of cultures and ethnic backgrounds, but so incredibly proud to be of Latvian descent. They gave us so much, contributed so much, and asked for so little in return. Remember, there were no bailouts, no bonuses, no soup kitchens, no welfare, only the strength of their endurance and backbreaking work that fed, sheltered, and clothed them. More importantly, having arrived from a foreign country, they did not ask you to embrace their culture, religion, or traditions, but quietly and steadfastly went about preserving their own. It was their spirit of adventure, their values and beliefs, their sense of integrity that drew you into their culture and lifestyle. In years gone by in this community, there was a fellowship you do not see today. The Lake Isle Magnolia July 1st picnics were an event as important to them as the Olympics are to us now. The picnics and the regattas where young maidens hope to meet a boy, mums and dads sharing recipes and the latest farm implement, grandpas and grandpas to offer up advice and share stories with the young uns. How important it was for the old steam locomotive with the baggage car and passenger car to arrive at Gainford. It was an event met with much excitement and anticipation. I never tired of being at the train depot to watch the cream cans being loaded and offloaded, the passengers on their way to some exotic place, and for the treat of an ice cream cone at the local store. The mums and dads maybe stopped long enough for a quick game of cribbage, if the chores were done at home. The long roll back to the homestead in an old boat, tired, exhilarated, and content. The community was dependent upon each other. Hard work and the spirit of adventure walked hand in hand. The Jones story is a 100-year story of our family, and being here at Lake Isle is a rich reminder of who we were, what we were, where we were, and what we are today. At the young age of 76, I suppose I am the oldest Jones who can remember the earliest days, and it is oftentimes with nostalgia that I return in thought, or in fact, to a former time in my life, to my youth, to my home, or to my family and friends, a sentimental yearning for the happiness of an earlier place or time. Though many original homestead stories are lost forever, the John and Olga Jones story is both a testament and a legacy to those who follow today. It begins after my grandparents, John and Olga Jones, arriving in North America, but first settling into New York in the late 1890s. They then left their Manhattan tenement apartment for the promise of a homestead and a better life. Armed with little more than their dreams, this unfaltering family invested their blood, sweat, and tears into transforming this often unforgiving land and climate into a home. The hardships they endured are both heartbreaking and humorous, and we are here today to honor their legacy. Don't let our history be forgotten. From homesteader children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, let the voices of the past speak to you today. The new land. Grandpa Jones made his patent application to homestead this land in 1907. with plans to turn it into a thriving enterprise. The fields needed to be cleared and broken, stocked with animals, the cabin and barn needed to be built, and the fences needed to be put up. During his first few weeks of work, a traveling preacher stops by to bless the grandpa's work, saying, "May you and God work together to make this the farm of your dreams." A few years later, the preacher stops by again to call on Grandpa. Lo and behold, it's a completely different place. The former cabin is completely built and in excellent condition. There are plenty of cattle and other livestock happily munching on feed in the well-fenced pens, and the fields are filled with crops planted in neat rows. "Amazing," the preacher says. "Look what God and you have accomplished together." "Yes, Reverend," says Grandpa, "but remember what the farm was like when God was working it by himself." Some of my earliest memories of being here at Lake Isle are what we nicknamed the Tornado Inn, a little summer cabin that my mother had just a few hundred yards from where we are now. It was almost 70 years ago, and as my memories grow dim, I must take some literary license with recalling these stories. But I do remember when the cabin was a flurry of activity, with noisy, boisterous children in and out. Hot summer days with the lake, the swimming, my parents, my grandfather John, and my Uncle Eddie. Then the leaves fall, the wind blows, and the farm country and lake slowly change from the summer cottons into their winter wools, and we head back to the city. The Jones lived off the land, producing their own food. They planted gardens and picked wild berries. Fruits and vegetables were preserved by pickling or drying. Jams and jellies were made. Food was stored in a root cellar. Ice was in the ice house. Rabbits, wild ducks, and fish were plentiful. They survived by their own ingenuity. For the Jones family, honor was their second name. While they're hardworking, dedicated to the family and community, they were no fools and enjoyed a good laugh and found time for some relaxing, while at the same time using their leisure time in productive ways. They taught us to begin at the beginning and go on till you come to the end, then stop. And the quickest way to double your money is to fold it and put it back in your pocket. Grandpa Jones was an avid writer and read everything he could get his hands on. In fact, time was often measured by how long it took him to smoke his pipe while writing a letter or reading an article. I remember vividly him sitting at desk or table, banked by volumes of National Geographic with yellow spines, which we were absolutely forbidden to touch. I do not recall if I ever actually held one, but I do remember him sharing interesting little tidbits of facts like the world's smallest winged insect, the Tanzanian parasitic wasp, is smaller than the eye of a housefly. A Cornish game hen is really a young chicken, usually 5 to 6 weeks of age, that weighs no more than 2 pounds. Almost without exception, cows are milked from the right side. The reason is because most farmers have been right-handed since the start of the dairy business, and it's easier for a right-handed milker to work from the right side. Yes, Grandpa Jones was shrewd too. A good businessman, respectful, full of integrity, and expected only that he be treated in kind. He instilled in me the importance of seizing opportunities when they represented themselves, and that God had given us summer only to prepare for the winter months ahead. Everyone worked hard from dawn till dusk, feeding the chickens, gathering the eggs, getting the mink, baling the hay. I think about the only place off limits was Grandpa's garden, a mosaic of colors in flowers, fruits, and vegetables, carefully fenced off against intruders. Like after what you have, he would say, the wagons rest in winter, the sleigh in summer, and the horse never. Grandpa Jones was a wise old farmer and went to town to buy a new buggy that he saw advertised in the paper for a certain price. After telling the salesman which one he wanted, they sat down to do the paperwork. The salesman handed him the bill and Grandpa Jones declared, "This isn't the price I saw." The salesman went on to tell Grandpa now he was getting extras such as self-steering, handbrakes, leather curtains, special rims, etc., and that was what took the price up. Grandpa, needing the buggy badly, paid the price and went home. A few months later, the salesman called up Grandpa and said, "My son is in 4-H and he needs a cow for a project. Do you have any for sale?" Grandpa replied, "Yes, I have a few cows I would sell for $500 apiece. Come and look at them and take your pick." The salesman said he and his son would be right out. After spending a few hours in the field checking out all of Grandpa's cows, the two decided on one, and the salesman proceeded to write out a check for $500. Grandpa said, "Now wait a minute. That's not the final price of the cow. You're getting extras with it, and you have to pay for that too." "What extras?" asked the salesman. This is the list Grandpa gave the salesman for the final price of the cow. Basic cow, $500. Two-tone exterior, $45. Extra stomach, $75. Product storing equipment, $60. Straw compartment, $120. 4 spigots at $10 each, $40. Leather upholstery, $125. Dual horns, $45. Automatic fly swatter, $38. Fertilizer attachment, $185. Grand total is $1,233. Yes, Grandpa was a frugal but an incredibly intelligent man. To many he may have appeared the poor farmer, but he was a man of pride, dignity, and seized every opportunity to better his life and the lives of his fellow Latvian friends and acquaintances. An avid writer for the Journal and Edmonton Bulletin, he wrote several articles. One such letter was discovered amongst his paperwork, addressed to the Department of Agriculture, and it read, "Dear Sir, my friend received a $1,000 check from the government for not raising hogs, and so I am going into the not raising hog business. What I want to know is, what is the best kind of land not to raise hogs on? And what is the best kind of hogs not to raise? I would prefer not to raise razorback, but if this is not the best kind not to raise, I will just as gladly not raise Durocs or Poland Chinas. The hardest part of this business is going to be keeping an individual record on each of the hogs I do not raise. My friend has been raising hogs for more than 20 years, and the most he ever made was $400 in 1918, until this year when he received $1,000 for not raising hogs. Now, if I get $1,000 for not raising 50 hogs, I will get $2,000 for not raising 100. I plan to start off on a small scale, holding myself down to not raising 4,000 hogs, for which I will receive, of course, $80,000. Now, these hogs I will not raise will not eat 100,000 bushels of corn. I understand you pay farmers for not raising corn. Will you pay me for not raising 100,000 bushels of corn, which I will not feed to the hogs which I am not raising? I want to get started as soon as possible, as this looks like a good time of the year for not raising hogs. Your obedient servant, Mr. John Jones. I can still hear the sound of Uncle Eddie's and my mother's laughter today. They shared a unique, impenetrable bond from the time they were born until the time they passed away. Uncle Eddie was a bit of a prankster too, and I know Mom enjoyed him. Once a city man took a winter vacation at the lake. After a few days of pure peace and quiet, though, he started to get restless. "What do you do for fun and excitement here?" he asked Uncle Eddie. "Oh, we go down to the lake and watch the moose dance on the ice," was the reply. "It's wonderful." The city fellow didn't think too much of that idea, but after another night of watching the wallpaper, he decided it was better than nothing. So that evening he went down to the lake. The next day he saw Uncle Eddie, who had recommended the trip. "I went down to the lake last night to watch the moose dance on the ice," the city man said. "It was the worst thing I ever saw. Those animals were so clumsy and uncoordinated. They were falling all over themselves." "Well, of course they were," snorted Uncle Eddie. "Nobody goes to the lake on Wednesdays. That's amateur night." The lake was the foundation of our existence and survival here, affecting every aspect of our lives. It was a source of food year-round. It offered a cool respite from blistering hot days, water for the gardens and crops, a bed for the ducks who migrated here each year, a quick access route to Gainford over the frozen mounds of snow and ice in the winter, a bathtub in the summer, and a never-ending source of entertainment for those who wanted to play. My mom loved the lake and passed this passion for the water down to my daughter Lynn. Lynn says she learned how to swim when someone took her out in the lake and threw her off the boat. I said, "Lynn, they weren't exactly trying to teach you how to swim." I remember when we went metric. Uncle Eddie goes into a store to buy 10 yards of chicken wire. The clerk says, "Haven't you heard? We've gone metric. We sell things by the meter now, not by the yard." Uncle Eddie thinks about it. "Okay, I'd like 10 meters of chicken wire." The clerk replies, "Right. Is that with the half-inch or the quarter-inch holes?" Uncle Eddie told a story about some farmer who decided his injuries from the accident were serious enough to take the trucking company, responsible for the accident, to court. In court, the trucking company's fancy lawyer was questioning Farmer Joe. "Didn't you say at the scene of the accident, 'I'm fine'?" said the lawyer. Farmer Joe responded, "Well, I'll tell you what happened. I had just loaded my favorite cow, Bessie, into the—" "I didn't ask for any details," the lawyer interrupted. "Just answer the question. Did you not say at the scene of the accident, 'I'm fine'?" Farmer Joe said, "Well, I had just got Bessie into the trailer and I was driving down the road." The lawyer interrupted again and said, "Judge, I am trying to establish the fact that at the scene of the accident, this man told the highway patrolman on the scene that he was just fine. Now, several weeks after the accident, he is trying to sue my client. I believe he is a fraud. Please tell him to simply answer the question." By this time, the judge was fairly interested in Farmer Joe's answer and said to the lawyer, "I'd like to hear what he has to say about his favorite cow, Bessie." Joe thanked the judge and proceeded, "Well, as I was saying, I had just loaded Bessie, my favorite cow, into the trailer and was driving her down the highway when this huge semi-truck and trailer ran the stop sign and smacked my truck right in the side. I was thrown into one ditch and Bessie was thrown into the other. I was hurting real bad and didn't want to move. However, I could hear old Bessie moaning and groaning. I knew she was in terrible shape just by her groans. Shortly after the accident, a highway patrolman came on the scene. He could hear Bessie moaning and groaning, so he went over to her. After he looked at her, he took out his gun and shot her between the eyes. Then the patrolman came across the road with his gun in his hand and looked at me. He said, "Your cow was in such bad shape I had to shoot her. How are you feeling?" I am grateful to Cynthia for her passion for this land, which will pass from her to her children, then grandchildren, extracting from each of them the promise that they will never sell and always keep it in the family. It is a source of pride for all of us that Cynthia has worked so hard and that wherever we are, whatever we are doing, we know that our roots are firmly planted in this soil. Yes, I learned many things from my grandfather John, my mother Edna, my uncle Eddie, but probably most importantly, thank you God for this good life, and forgives us if we do not love it enough. Thank you.